Hi ladies and gentlemen, Spinny here, and as the title suggests, on October 12th, 2025, I will be running the Melbourne Marathon, the full 42.2 kilometer distance, or 26.2 miles. And to give me extra motivation, I've opened a fundraiser for Beyond Blue to help those struggling with their mental health. I think it's time to finally be completely open about the brief struggles I had just before I created my YouTube channel and how therapy and exercise prevented me from going into an even worse place. Cliche as it might sound, it really did help. As some of you know, I'm autistic, not fully, but enough to be noticeable. I was diagnosed when I was a toddler, so I knew I had it, never thought about what that meant, so it didn't faze me until I became an adult, the final year of high school. That's when I started to notice how much of an impact it had, like something was up with the way I approached myself socially, the way I process information and come up with articulate responses on the fly, not being able to recognize body language properly, struggling with eye contact. It feels like I'm being stared at by eyes 5 times bigger than they actually are, and sensory levels are higher, particularly with unexpected noises, for example, like dogs barking or kids screaming. It physically hurts in a way. If you're autistic and watching this, I'm sure it affects you in other ways, but that's the best way I can describe it from my perspective, and that's why I'm a very quiet and shy person outside of this channel. I thought it was easier for everyone for me to say practically nothing, because that's considered less awkward than saying something stupid because of all the aforementioned factors. Every sentence I say, I'm always running into a mental brick wall, stuck in my own little world. Even now, there'd be times where I have a conversation, reflecting a minute later, thinking, what am I doing? I seem to have the right things to say pop up after it's too late. Conversations always go better in my head than they actually do in real life. Now, I've gotten so much better over the last couple of years, and I'm not saying being on the spectrum is an illness that needs to be cured or anything like that, the sole reason I'm fundraising for Beyond Blue, but it was part of the reason it put me in a dark place around 2013-14, because it really got to me. Additionally, because I went to a private school where there were a lot of very smart students who would go on to have successful careers, I put a lot of pressure on myself to match up to that, and I wasn't confident enough that if I graduate I wouldn't get a job out of it, so I spent the first year wondering if it was worth studying the course or not. Even today I still do it. I put pressure on myself to make Color Shed a popular YouTube channel while not trying to lose myself as a person in the process, but around that time the pressure was too much to handle. I was setting high expectations for myself, both career and socially, and while it's good to be ambitious and aim high, I did it the wrong way. When it wasn't working out, I get really pissed off with myself over tiny mistakes, frequently asking myself, why can't I do this right? Why am I so far behind from everyone else? Why are conversations so short when I'm involved? Why is it so hard to just act like a normal human being? And sure enough, it made me really depressed. I felt like, what was the point? I felt like an outcast. Confidence levels were non-existent, and all the things and hobbies I enjoyed, I didn't enjoy them anymore. And my brother, who was always recommending me to a psychologist, because even though I didn't really talk about it, he could tell something was up, and I'm sure a lot of people I was close with noticed too, but it reached a point where he basically said, you're seeing a psychologist whether you like it or not. I'm not asking pity from you guys, I really don't want it. I know a few people who've had it so much worse than me. I'm just trying to explain why I want to raise awareness and help those affected by anxiety and depression, why it's very important to me, because I've been there before. I love you, bro, for doing that. It took me a few sessions, but ultimately what I needed was a sense of purpose without worrying what the outside world thought about it. Just do what you enjoy without thinking about it too much. Develop a higher level work ethic, and creating this YouTube channel was the biggest thing in helping me get out of that hole. But I've already gone into detail about that side of the story on my channel's 10th anniversary video. However, what didn't slow down even when I was depressed was making sure I exercised regularly. There's never a day when I regret a workout. I know a lot of time on screen playing video games and video editing also meant I had to make up for it with a lot of vigorous workouts in the gym, in a class, or running while maintaining a healthy diet. I'm not saying I'm a pro athlete or anything like that, but it's an important habit to have in your life, no matter who you are and what you do, to live as long as possible, especially now that I've entered the 30s club recently. Looking old and being unfit is another fear of mine, as well as a good motivator to train hard. Anyway, in 2022, I was doing regular runs as part of my exercise routine, around 10 kilometers each time, and my brother said he was going to run the Melbourne Marathon, the half bit. Do you want to join me? And I thought, Okay, why not? And after increasing the number of kilometers each day, I trained and ran faster. I thought I could actually get a decent time. My goal was 1 hour and 40 minutes, and I did it with literally a few seconds to spare. And naturally, I thought the next step was running the full distance. As some of you already know, I tried to do the Melbourne Marathon in 2023, trained hard and probably too hard because I ended up injuring my hip a couple of months before the marathon, which made it physically impossible to do it without the high risk of further injury. But I also launched a fundraiser for Beyond Blue, raising $1,200 in the process, so I still considered it a successful little campaign to help those struggling with depression and anxiety. And after recovering and returning to running, I thought about trying it again in 2024, but I was honestly too scared of re-injuring myself. But that itch to run a marathon hasn't gone away. I promise one day, I said this when I announced that I couldn't do it 2 years earlier, one day I'm going to run that marathon, and this year is it. Hopefully. It's why I'm announcing this only weeks before I'm set to run the marathon itself. I want to be sure that I'm not hurt this time. Fundraiser, yep, once again, I've opened another one for Beyond Blue to raise both vital funds and awareness for mental health and support on combating anxiety, depression, and suicide, because again, it's a real and delicate thing, and it can affect anyone in different ways, whether you realize it or not. I know for many it can be a hard thing to admit that you need help, because there is a stigma that doing so makes you a weak person and a burden to someone else. I admit I thought that for a long time myself, but I guarantee you that's not the case at all. It's amazing how cathartic it is to let out what you're feeling to a family member or a friend. That's what Beyond Blue is about, to help those struggling even if they can't go to someone or don't have the resources, because life is too short to feel anxious and depressed chronically, or both. The link is in the video description and top comment, as well as all the color shared social media pages. I've already made a head start on the fundraiser for you guys, so any amount, even if it's just $1, I really appreciate it. Looking forward to October. It's worth noting this marathon is on the same weekend as PAX, where I'll be doing a panel to celebrate 25 years of the PlayStation 2, a day before the marathon, so it's going to be very busy in a few days in Melbourne, both socially and physically, but no less memorable. Thanks for watching, everyone. Looking forward to the challenge. See you all in October. Spenny out.